Hello, ninth grade. Welcome to your week 8 rundown video for our asynchronous humanities work. This week we are shifting gears. We have conducted all the research for this project and our focus now is turning towards the designing and making of our process documentaries. So as always in this rundown video, I'm going to be walking you through the 3 things that I have in store for you this week. All 3 you will find on Google Classroom under, of course, Hybrid Week 8. And number 1, as always, is the rundown video you're watching now. Number 2 is called Process Documentary Details, and it's actually a slideshow, and in these slides you will find all of the details, all of the context, all of the instruction, the criteria that I am looking for in these process documentaries, and I'll actually be walking you through that slideshow momentarily in this video. And number 3, process documentary storyboards. So this is an assignment. After you have reviewed all of the criteria, all of the expectations and the details for the process documentaries that we'll be making, you'll be ready to start your initial approach into the designing of those documentaries. And this initial step is called storyboarding. We're going to learn a little bit about what storyboarding is in a moment, but for now I'll just go over the assignments. Under number 3, you'll find a document. You're going to open that document and complete it. And in order to complete this assignment, you need to refer to our film crew footage folder. This is the folder that was shared with each and every one of you. It's essentially has all of the footage that we've recorded collectively. So the initial view, once you access the folder, you have 2 subfolders, Thursday, Friday. This is going to be the Clash and the Cure, and Monday and Tuesday, that is Cool and Queen. All of the footage below is stuff that I myself have recorded and each of you are able to access. So just try to sift through all of that and look specifically for footage that is of your classmates. So Queen only use footage from Queen and so on and so forth. So yes, in order to complete the assignment that I've linked in number 3, process documentary storyboards, you each need to access the footage that we have collectively recorded and compiled in this folder here. All right, so now let's take a look at the slides that I have prepared for you. They are here. So in this presentation, I'm going to be covering essentially the details for our process documentaries. What are process documentaries? Why are we filming these? And what are the expectations or the criteria for each? So remember, each of you are working in film crews. Your teams that were established many, many weeks ago, that you've been working together and filming together, you will now come together after all of that collaborative work and design and create your group's process documentary. All right, the overview. So the documentaries are essentially comprised of 2 different important parts that are sort of happening simultaneously. First of all, what is the viewer seeing? So what are the visuals? What is the graphics or the images? Essentially, your visuals will be carefully selected footage, cut and edited together to show the viewer each step of the process and how far the garden has come. So what are the viewers seeing? What footage are we using? This is going to be the footage that has been recorded every step of the way throughout the transformation of the garden. So you should incorporate footage of your group in the cleaning and clearing phase. So weeding and wheelbarrowing and raking and what have you. Then you might move on to the construction of the garden beds or the staining or the irrigation or the building and framing of the outdoor learning space. So essentially, what is your viewer seeing? They are seeing the footage that we have filmed of the garden over time. And secondly, what will they be hearing? Essentially, the narration or the script is going to be an overview of our why. So I've been referring to that term, our why. It's essentially what we've been covering in humanities. So while they'll be seeing over time the transformation of the garden, what they're going to be hearing is essentially the purpose for all of this work. And as you can see here, the why, so essentially the audio is going to be a mix between voice-over recording or group members actually being filmed speaking or walking the viewer through some details of our why. The criteria. So just a few big points to cover here. Your videos in total will be somewhere between 2 and 3 minutes in length. Each group member will be seen and heard at some point in the documentary. And lastly, each group will submit a final script and storyboard along with their documentaries. All right, so when you're thinking about the why, when you're thinking about the audio, the script, there's a few main points that I really want you to hit on. And these can be found on slide number 4 in this presentation. So make sure that you will need to refer back to these slides as you are completing your storyboard and as you are drafting your script in order to ensure you are hitting all of these important points that I'm wanting you to hit on. All right, so let's talk about some of those points. At some point in your videos, you need to be prepared to introduce us as a school. So talk about High Tech High Mesa, talk about project-based learning, and then also a brief rundown of the project. And so specifically, I'm talking about the what. So provide some context for what they'll be seeing visually. Provide some context for the footage, the garden work, and all the different projects that we've engaged in on the farm. Now, these 2 bullet points, although very important, really I expect them to be brief. You only have a maximum of 3 minutes for your videos, and this should take up maybe 1 minute at most. The majority of your video should be talking about this 3rd bullet here, an overview of the why. And this is everything that we've been researching and learning about in humanities. So as you're explaining our why, which is essentially our vision and hope for the garden, I want you to cover these important bullets. So what community is it that we are working with or hoping to serve with our garden? An explanation of food deserts and food insecurity, and essentially how our garden is going to be closing that gap in access. Also, our community partners. So in case you don't remember, we have 2 really important community partners for this project. One being Bayside Community Center in Linda Vista, and the other being San Diego Co-Harvest. And again, so just an explanation of what it is that we're hoping to achieve with our garden. All right, so this is my expectations for this script. And now that we've covered the overview criteria and sort of the outline for our script, we're ready to move on to your assignment for this week. And our first step towards actually the creation and design of our documentaries, and that is, as I mentioned before, storyboards. Okay, so as you can see on the slide, a storyboard is a graphic organizer that helps to map out the visuals of your film in sequence. So it's used in sort of the design or the initial brainstorming phase of filmmaking. And it's really helpful in that it will sort of assist us as we are sifting through the overwhelming amount of footage that we've compiled in determining what we want to use and when or where in the film. So I've compiled some examples here. So this is Hitchcock's The Bird, but essentially before it was a film, it was a series of images that sort of guided the director in terms of filming. And it's usually like step by step or image by image, kind of an idea that the actors and directors then sort of use to guide them. So you'll see that it starts with a woman in a particular pose, and then it cuts to an image of a bunch of birds, and then it goes back to the woman. So that was a sequence that in the design phase of this film, the director definitely wanted to incorporate. And so before filming that, they illustrated it, and then the illustrations were used as sort of a guide. So this is another one. I'm not quite sure what movie this is from. But essentially, it's a sequence of images that is eventually used as sort of a guide in the filming of the actual movie. Now let's take a look at what storyboarding kind of looks like as it's being done. So typically, it's a series of boxes. The boxes are images, in sequence, and then below the images there is some context, some notes or directions, some explanation, or in our case, this is where we're going to be drafting our script. All right, so let's take a look. If we go back to our Google Classroom, number 3 is the actual assignment. This is our storyboard assignment, and it looks like this. So this should look familiar because we just saw several examples. But again, you have a larger box above and a smaller box below. And if we follow the prompts here, the larger box is essentially what the viewer will see. Below that is the explanation, notes, or ideally where you will put the script or what the viewer is going to be listening to at that particular point in your film. So if we scroll down and look at this document as a whole, you'll see several boxes here, or several sets of boxes. I want you to approach this graphic organizer as if you were drafting a comic book, okay? So the order in which you are filling these out, it goes in sequential order. So this box here is the very first box. So it essentially will be the very first thing your viewer will see. And then from this view here, or this shot, or this clip, you're going to move on to the next visual, and then the visual after that, and then the visual after that. So make sure that you are using these boxes to help the sequence, or to design the sequence of your visuals over time. And below each box, so below each clip or visual that you're going to use, should be what the viewer is hearing at that point in the film. Okay? So at the top of this assignment, I have linked our film crew footage folder because so in the examples that I've provided you, this is actually drawn footage, or I'm sorry, drawn images here. What we are going to do, since we have access to all of this pre-recorded film, what we're going to do is we're going to be filling out these boxes using actual footage that we are selecting from the huge list of compiled film that we filmed over the last 7 weeks. Okay, so this is why this is going to be quite the undertaking, because not only are we needing to map out and sort of design the sequence of our film, but in order to do that, we have to now start the process of going back through all of this footage that we've recorded and selecting our favorites, or selecting the most impactful or the best of the best, essentially, to incorporate into our film. Now, once we decide, oh, this is a great opening shot here. This image is perfect for what I want my viewer to be seeing first. I'm going to, for my storyboard, for the purposes of my storyboard, I'm going to pause it, take a screenshot, and then that is what I'm going to use inside my inside this box here. So I'll go insert, image, upload, and just look for it. Here it is. We'll do this one. Okay, so if this is the opening scene, this is what I want my viewer to be seeing first. I'm going to provide some notes, explanation, or ideally the actual script, so the words you want to be read or spoken at that point in the film goes here. So I'll put script for this point of the film goes here. All right. Then after this initial clip, what are we moving on to next? You're going to go back through all of this footage. You're going to go back through all of this footage and decide what's the next shot? What's the next image or visual here? And you're going to essentially go through all of the footage and continue in that way, sort of designing the sequence of your visuals using this storyboard. Okay? Really helpful also, very important point. So this is great. It's helpful for me to see the sort of sequence that you've landed on, but just the image itself is not helpful. Make sure that once you've decided on what you want to use, that you're also being very intentional of writing down or recording somewhere the actual file title, because this is not going to be helpful. You'll have to sift through all of that footage again to find this clip. But if you use the image and then also incorporate, let's say that it's 1753. So I'm going to put that here as well. We'll go 1753, and then there's the image for reference. Okay? So one more time, let's go through it one more again. Perhaps let's assume that this is the next one I want to use here. I'm going to pause. I'm going to take a screenshot. Okay, the title of this file is 1783. So I'll put 1783 and then upload that image. Insert image. There we go. Okay, so there's my next image. Now, of course, we're not using images, or at least we're not, the majority of the visuals that we use are actually going to be clips, not images, but this is just helpful. Essentially, we're going to use stills from the clips we want to use, just because digitally that's the easiest way to do this. But obviously, you're not going to be using these stills. You'll be using the clips that we took these stills from, okay? So again, the top box is the images from the clips that you use. Don't forget to include the file titles so that you know where to find them when you're ready to start editing. And then below is going to be what is spoken or heard at that point in the film. And you'll just continue through to the until you're finished. Okay, so 17.5 minutes. This is probably our longest rundown video yet. However, we covered quite a bit. We covered all of the different things under our module for this week on Google Classroom. I walked you through the criteria, the overview, and the script outline for our process documentaries. And with the context that I provided for this number 3 here, you should be confidently prepared to approach your storyboard. If you have questions, as always, you can send me an email or come see me for office hours. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Good luck.